There's a moment that sneaks up on all of us as we get a little older. You pick up the phone to call your daughter, but she's too busy to talk. You suggest a family dinner, but the grandkids have soccer practice. Or maybe you've noticed the conversations at gatherings don't include you as much as they happen around you. It's a quiet kind of hurt, isn't it? That feeling of being overlooked, like your voice doesn't carry the weight it once did. But here's what I want you to remember. You matter. Your thoughts, your stories, your love, they're all worth being heard. And if you're watching this today, I'm guessing you're ready to reclaim that respect and connection with your family. Well, you're in the right place. In this video, we're going to walk through some gentle, practical steps to help you rebuild those bridges. No grand gestures or confrontations, just honest, heartfelt strategies that honor both you and your loved ones. Now, let's start with something that might surprise you. The first step to being respected again begins with you. I know, that sounds a little counterintuitive, but think about it. When we feel ignored, it's easy to focus on what others aren't doing. But what if we turn that energy inward first? Let me share a story. A few years back, my friend Martha, sharp as a tack at 78, told me her kids never asked for her advice anymore. "They treat me like a piece of furniture," she said. But when we talked deeper, Martha realized she'd started interrupting her grandkids' stories with, "Back in my day," comparisons, not out of malice, of course, just habit. So she made a small shift. She started asking them questions first. "What's that new app you're using?" Or, "Tell me about your science project." And you know what? Slowly, those conversations started flowing both ways again. That's what I mean by starting with yourself. Sometimes, without realizing it, we fall into patterns that push people away, criticizing too quickly, offering unsolicited advice, or even retreating into silence because we're afraid of being dismissed. So here's your first actionable step. Take a week to observe. Keep a little journal by your chair. After family interactions, jot down 2 things. How did you contribute to the conversation? And how did it leave you feeling? You're not judging yourself here, just gathering clues. Now, once you've got a clearer picture, it's time to lean into the second tool, listening with intention. And I don't mean nodding along while waiting for your turn to speak. Real listening is like a gift. It says, "I value you." Let's say your son mentions his stressful week at work. Instead of jumping in with, "You think that's bad? When I was your age?" Try, "That sounds tough. What's been the hardest part?" Suddenly, you're not just a parent, you're a confidant. But here's the secret. People mirror the respect you give them. If you listen deeply, they'll start to do the same. And if they don't, that's where our third step comes in. Setting boundaries with kindness. Now, boundaries aren't walls, they're guide rails. For example, if your family often cancels plans last minute, you might say, "I'd love to see you, but I need a heads up by Thursday so I can prepare." No guilt trips, no lectures, just a clear, calm request. This isn't about demanding respect, it's about demonstrating your own worth. And guess what? Over time, that shift in your energy can work wonders. Of course, this is just the beginning. Rebuilding connections takes patience, and a few more tools we'll explore together. But for now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever tried changing the dynamic with a family member by shifting your own approach? Drop a comment below. I read every one. In the next part, we'll talk about how to reignite shared joy and find common ground, even when it feels like the world's moved on without you. But until then, remember this. You've spent decades loving, guiding, and supporting your family. That legacy doesn't fade. It just needs a little nurturing to shine again. You've taken those first steps, observing your habits, listening with intention, setting gentle boundaries, and maybe you're starting to see little shifts, like your granddaughter texting you a meme, or your son lingering a bit longer after Sunday dinner. But let's be honest, Kellen Entrunchu. Is slow. Some days it might still feel like you're standing on the outskirts of your own family's life, watching the world buzz by without you. That's okay. Today we're going to talk about how to step back into the center, not by demanding attention, but by creating moments that draw people in. And it all starts with something we often forget to nurture as we age: shared joy. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you laughed with your family until your sides hurt? Not just a polite chuckle, but a deep belly laugh that reminds you how good it feels to be connected. Joy is like glue for relationships, but sometimes when we're feeling overlooked, we wait for others to bring the joy to us. What if we became the spark instead? Take my neighbor Frank. At 72, he felt invisible at family gatherings, always stuck making small talk while the grandkids scrolled their phones. Then, one day, he dug out his old harmonica. Didn't make a big deal about it, just started playing a silly tune during dessert. Next thing he knew, his teenage grandson asked, "Can you teach me that?" Now, they practice together every week. Frank didn't force a connection, he invited one. So here's your next step. Find a bridge. Maybe it's a hobby, a story, or even a shared challenge. Bridges don't have to be grand, just genuine. Did your grandson mention he's learning guitar? Dust off your old records and say, "I've got a song you might like." Does your daughter love gardening? Plant a single tomato seedling together and watch it grow. The goal isn't to impress, it's to create a tiny thread of us in a world that often feels like them and me. Now let's talk about something tender. The stories we tell ourselves. When family pulls away, it's easy to spiral into thoughts like, "They don't care," or "I've become a burden." But what if the truth is simpler? What if they're just busy? Not because they love you less, but because life moves faster now. This brings us to our fourth tool: reframing your role. For decades, you might have been the problem solver, the caregiver, the advice giver. But roles evolve. Maybe now your superpower is being the steady presence, the one who doesn't rush, judge, or fix. Think of yourself as the campfire everyone gathers around when they need warmth. You don't chase people to sit with you, you just keep the fire burning. Here's how to put this into action. Next time a family member vents about their chaotic day, resist the urge to solve it. Instead, try saying, "That sounds exhausting. Want to sit and have a cup of tea with me?" Sometimes offering peace is more powerful than offering solutions. But let's address the elephant in the room. What if you've tried all this and still feel ignored? That's where our fifth step comes in: cultivating your own light. Respect isn't just about how others treat you, it's about how you treat yourself. When was the last time you did something that made you proud? Joined a community choir? Volunteered at the library? Finished a crossword without help? Here's the thing: confidence is magnetic. When you're engaged in life, not just waiting for your family to engage you, people notice. They'll start to see you as someone with stories to tell, not just someone waiting to hear theirs. I'll never forget Ruth, a viewer who wrote to me last year. At 80, she'd stopped attending her art class because her arthritis made holding a brush difficult. "I felt useless," she said. Then, on a whim, she tried digital painting on her granddaughter's tablet. Turns out, swiping a screen was easier on her hands. Now, she emails her family weekly masterpieces: goofy doodles of her cat, sunset screenshots from her porch. Her grandkids reply with emojis and jokes. And Ruth? She's back to feeling like an artist. That's the magic of adapting. It's not about keeping up with the times, it's about showing your family you're still curious about life. And curiosity, my friends, is ageless. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, but what if I've already tried these things? What if the distance feels too wide? That's when we dig deeper, not into their hearts, but into ours. In the next part, we'll explore how to heal old wounds without reopening them, and how to communicate your needs in a way that invites love instead of guilt. But for now, I'd love to hear from you. What's one small, joyful thing you could share with your family this week? A recipe, a song, a walk around the block? Tell me in the comments, and who knows, your idea might inspire someone else here to take their next step. Remember, rebuilding respect isn't about changing who you are. It's about reminding how much you still bring to the table. There's a quote I've always loved tucked inside this old book of mine. The greatest courage is not in facing the world, it's in facing ourselves. And if there's one thing I've learned from all our conversations here, it's that rebuilding respect within a family isn't just about changing how others see you. It's about having the courage to look inward, to tend to the parts of us that feel bruised, and to choose growth, even when it's hard. Let's talk about those quieter hurts first, the ones that maybe no one in your family even knows about. That offhand comment your daughter made last Christmas that still stings. The time your son forgot to call on your birthday. Those moments pile up, don't they? They build little walls, brick by brick, until one day you realize you're standing on one side and everyone else is on the other. But here's the truth. Unspoken hurts don't fade. They fossilize. So our next step is gentle honesty. Now, I'm not saying you need to confront every slight or relive old arguments. This isn't about stirring the pot. It's about clarifying the water. Let me give you an example. A few months ago, I got a letter from a man named Henry. He'd been quietly resentful for years because his grandson rarely visited. Instead of staying silent, Henry wrote him a short note. I miss our chess matches. If you ever have time, I'd love to play again, even if it's just online. No blame, no guilt, just an invitation. His grandson replied within an hour, Grandpa, I didn't think you cared about video games. Let's play tonight. Notice what Henry did? He named his hurt without accusation. He opened a door instead of pointing at a closed one. That's gentle honesty. Your turn. Pick one small, unresolved hurt that's been weighing on you. Write it down. Then ask yourself, how can I express this in a way that focuses on my feelings, not their faults? Something like, I felt lonely when we didn't talk on my birthday, instead of, you always forget about me. Words matter. They can either heal or divide. Now let's address a fear I know many of you carry. What if I've waited too long? What if the distance feels permanent? That's where our final tool comes in, persistent kindness. Not grand gestures, but quiet, consistent acts of love that say, I'm here. Think of it like planting a garden. You don't yell at the seeds to grow faster. You water them, give them sun, and trust the process. Maybe you text your grandkid a funny photo every Friday. Maybe you mail your niece a handwritten recipe card. Maybe you simply say, I'm proud of you, when no one expects it. These acts might feel small, but over time, they rebuild trust. They remind your family that your love isn't conditional, it's a constant. But here's the key. Persist in kindness isn't about earning respect. It's about embodying it. You don't chase, you radiate. And when you do, something shifts. People start to lean in, not because you've demanded it, but because they're drawn to the light you've nurtured in yourself. Now, let's take a breath. We've covered a lot together. Self-reflection, listening, boundaries, joy, reframing roles, confidence, honesty, kindness. If you're feeling overwhelmed, that's okay. Start with one step. Just one. Maybe today you'll send a text saying, I'd love to hear about your day when you have time. Or maybe you'll join that senior yoga class you've been eyeing just to remind yourself how strong you still are. Because here's the secret no one tells you. Respect isn't something you get, it's something you know. When you truly believe in your own worth, it echoes in everything you do. Your posture changes. Your voice, steady S. You stop waiting for others to fill your cup because you've learned how to fill it yourself. So, to every one of you watching, you are not a footnote in your family's story. You are a pillar, a keeper of memories, a weaver of wisdom. And while the world may rush and change, what you offer, your patience, your love, your resilience, is timeless. Before we say goodbye, I'd love to hear from you. What's one small step you'll take this week to honor your worth? Share it in the comments below. Let's inspire each other. And if this video resonated with you, pass it along to a friend who might need it. After all, none of us should walk this path alone. Thank you for trusting me with your time today. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. We've got more heartfelt conversations on the way. And to all of you, remember, no matter how quiet the room feels right now, your voice matters. Your presence matters. And the love you've poured into your family for decades, it's still there deep down, waiting to be rediscovered. So go on, open that album, make that call, plant that garden. However you choose to begin, know that I'm cheering for you every step of the way.